All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Welcome, everyone. If you're tuning in, I know you're a focused learner, someone who really values their time and just wants to get straight to the good stuff. Today, we're tackling something that trips up so many ambitious people, and that's the journey to actually mastering a new language. Specifically, we're looking at how to finally stop struggling with Portuguese and uncover the real path to fluency. We're going to break down those common hurdles and, more importantly, walk through the actual solution. So get comfortable, lock in, and let's get started on mastering Portuguese without all those usual headaches.
So let me ask you something. Are you frustrated by language apps? It's a simple question, right? But man, it gets right to the heart of the problem. You've probably been there. I know I have. You download an app, you commit to a streak, and for a few days, it feels pretty great. But eventually, reality sets in. Learning Portuguese just with apps or completely flying solo can be incredibly frustrating. And honestly, it's just so slow. You're clicking buttons, matching cute little pictures, but when it actually comes time to formulate a real sentence to a native speaker, boom, your mind goes completely blank. The source material we're looking at today hits on this exact pain point. Solo learning kind of isolates you from the whole point of language in the first place, which is real human connection.
This really illustrates the core conflict every language learner eventually faces. On one hand, you've got the standard apps and self-study route. And as we just talked about, and as our source highlights, this path is slow. It's frustrating. It's a very static experience. But then, on the other hand, you have the ultimate goal, real fluency. That's where we actually want to be. That side is dynamic. It's confident. It is literally the difference between mechanically translating words in your head and effortlessly expressing your actual thoughts in Portuguese. So it really begs the question, how do we cross that chasm? How do we get from slow and frustrating to dynamic and confident? If the apps aren't cutting it, what's the actual mechanism for real fluency? Well, this brings us to a specific framework for crossing that gap, the online school solution outlined in our source material. And look, this isn't just about trying harder, it's about fundamentally changing your methodology. Let's break down the pillars here. First up, experienced teachers. You're basically replacing a cold algorithm with a real, live human expert who can correct your unique, specific mistakes. Second, an exclusive learning platform. This gives you that structured environment you need to really focus. Third, and I want you to really pay attention to this one, it's a real game changer. Materials for real-life conversations. We're not talking about robotic phrases like, the cat is under the table, but the actual everyday language people use. Fourth, the lessons are fun and dynamic, which is absolutely crucial for keeping your motivation up. And fifth, it's super affordable. This specific combo is designed to help you reach a much higher level of Portuguese way faster and with that magic ingredient we just talked about, confidence. So all of this leads to a pretty provocative question straight from our source. Ready to speak like a Brazilian? And this isn't just a catchy marketing hook. It's a total shift in mindset. Because speaking like a native isn't about memorizing a dictionary. No way. It's about understanding the nuances, the culture, the weird little quirks of the language that apps just completely miss. To truly speak like a Brazilian, you absolutely need those materials designed for real-life conversations. And to prove exactly why that expert guidance is so incredibly necessary, we're going to look at a highly practical example straight from the curriculum. Section 1, beware of false friends, or as they say in Portuguese, palavras que significam outra coisa. Let's get into it. To really see why expert guidance is so vital, let's look at a few common English words and their very deceptive Portuguese counterparts. Because true fluency, actually speaking like a Brazilian, means avoiding direct translation traps. A false friend is basically a word in Portuguese that looks or sounds almost exactly like a word in English, but the meaning, totally different. If you're just using an app or studying completely on your own, you're naturally going to assume these words translate directly. And trust me, when you use them in a real-life conversation, you're going to end up saying something very confusing or honestly highly embarrassing. So let's break these down so you can avoid stepping on these linguistic landmines. Okay, let's dive into this first trap. Just think about how often you use the word actually in English. We use it all the time, right? To clarify a point, state a fact, like, actually, I prefer coffee. If you want to express that exact English concept of actually in Portuguese, you absolutely cannot rely on words that just look similar. You have to use the phrase na verdade. Literally, this leans closer to saying in truth. So if you want to be properly understood when you're clarifying a point in a fast-paced conversation, you've got to commit na verdade to memory. And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side of that exact same coin. The whole reason you can't just guess the word for actually is because Portuguese has a word that looks exactly like it, actualmente. If you're chatting with a Brazilian and you say actualmente when you really mean to say actually, well, you just walked right into a false friend trap. Because actualmente actually translates to nowadays or currently in English. Just imagine trying to say, actually, I am busy, but instead you end up saying, nowadays, I am busy. You've completely changed the entire context of time and meaning. This right here, this is exactly why solo study can be so ridiculously frustrating. All right, let's move on to our second set of deceptive words, and this one is incredibly common in professional or academic settings. Take the English word data. When you're talking about facts, information, statistics, or, files on your computer, the correct Portuguese translation is dados. If you need to send your boss a spreadsheet of information, you are sending dados. It is an absolutely crucial vocabulary word for real-world, day-to-day interactions.
But watch out, because here is the trap. The word data actually exists in Portuguese, spelled exactly the same way, D-A-T-A. But if you use the word data with a native speaker, they aren't thinking about your spreadsheet or your statistics, not at all. They're thinking about the calendar. The Portuguese word data translates to a calendar date in English. Just imagine the sheer confusion in a business meeting if you ask for the data, meaning statistics, and your Brazilian colleague thinks you're just asking for today's date on the calendar. This is exactly where having an experienced teacher steps in to save you from these awkward conversational roadblocks.
Okay, let's look at our final false friend pairing. Say you're talking about a famous historical myth or folklore or, a story passed down through generations. In English, we use the word legend. To express that exact same concept in Portuguese, the translation you need is lenda. Lenda is your myth, your legendary story. Simple enough, right? But wait, look at this. The Portuguese language has the word legenda. And man, it looks almost identical to the English word legend. But if you're watching a movie or a YouTube video and you tell your Brazilian friend to turn on the legenda, you aren't asking them to turn on a myth. You are simply asking for the captions or the subtitles. If you're just blindly following a dictionary app without really understanding the real-life conversational context, you might literally end up calling your favorite movie's subtitles a historical myth. And nobody wants that. We just looked at a mere handful of words today, but honestly, it fundamentally shifts how you need to think about learning a language. So I want to leave you with this question to really ponder. How many other linguistic traps are you currently falling into? If simple, everyday words like data and actually can cause this much confusion, just imagine the countless other false friends and awkward conversational traps waiting for you out there in the wild. The source material we explored today makes it super clear. Navigating these traps all alone is exactly what makes learning feel so slow and frustrating. But by utilizing an online school with experienced teachers, a focused platform, and materials genuinely designed for real-life conversations, you avoid the traps, you bypass all that frustration, and you finally find the real, dynamic path to fluency. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay focused, have fun with it, and keep learning.